Welcome, 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 welcome. It's our time to gather. And it's not Womanhood Wisdom Wednesday, but it is our Tribe Talk Thursday for today. And it's timeless, okay? Welcome, y'all. Let's give some love to Tony Jones. Yes, I am Latanya Taylor, affectionately known as the Rev Coach, the Juicy Spirit Model, the Priestess of Purpose, Pleasure, Passion, and Profit. And I'm here today to talk about our Feminine Abundance series designed for us to play the Queen's Piece. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Yes, share, tag somebody in the tribe. Yes, yes. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. All right now. We'll come back to Miss Tony Jones, who we love and adore, who is an honorary member of our tribe and extended tribes. Again, I'm Latanya Taylor, affectionately known as the Rev Coach, and I am here for our tribe supplemental today. And so let us go on and get into this zone. So I want to make sure that as I turn that down, that you can hear me okay. I want to make sure that, oh, happy Thursday, love. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? All right. So I know that some people are going to join us in the replay and that type of thing. And I want to just jump right on into it just because it's so important that, you know, I honor my word for you and with you. And so I want to go right into a little bit of just a presentation just to talk about unconscious energy leaks and an invitation to you to seal those energy leaks because on yesterday in the tribe, in the group, in Rebirth Woman Tribe of the Free, I did a prep just saying, what time that and what season we're in and some of the astrological influences, but also the political environment that we're in. Also looking at where we are spiritually in the collective consciousness in the world right now. And many of you are here in this space of Rebirth Woman, rising to become the difference, even though you've been different. You have done it different. You talk different. You refer to things differently in your reference point for your spirituality, for your sacred feminine, for your money, for the game that you're playing. And there are times when so much is happening on the outside, we forget to go into the inside. And so sometimes the outer distractions can create these energy leaks in our own auric field, in our own chakra system. But it's good to use all of those woo-woo words, so to speak. But it also shows up in our money life. It shows up in our finances. It shows up in our relationships. And there are ways that it shows up that sometimes we'll say, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm doing it, because many of us are also high achievers. And so just because we're busy, sometimes we think we're good. And then it's not until we crash and burn, or there's a big event that's happening. And you all know there's a lot happening that's changing right now in front of our faces. And either some of us are pretending like we don't know and don't see, which is another topic altogether, or those of us who are waiting to be rescued, or there are those of us who don't know what to do, so we're not doing anything. And there are those who are being very active and proactive about the next move that you're playing. I call it the game of chess, not checkers. And again, I talked more about this in the first part on yesterday, the casual impromptu only in Rebirth Woman. And I do encourage you to get those. And so I want to keep moving, because I want to go on to what is an energy leak. We are energetic beings, and sometimes we forget that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But we forget that even though we are spiritual beings having a human experience, we are having a human experience. And those human experiences sometimes can be unexplainable when we don't slow down, when we don't have checks and balances, or when we are overloaded, system overload. And I want to tell a story about what I think really motivated me to be able to get here to share this really quickly. But I want to define an energy leak. An energy leak is, first of all, energy is force or power directed to move an object, an idea, or a feeling. Therefore, energy leaks can be examined when we have energy that we are expending, but it's not returned, or energy that creates some type of deficit in certain areas of our lives. And you all may have seen that my girl from Enchanted PR on her new show, it's really a rebranded show, Getting Crystal Clear. I talked about how oftentimes in the feminine, we become these alpha women who have it all together. At least that's what we tell the world. But we start to overcompensate for places in our lives where we have been undercompensated. And being undercompensated in our lives can create a pattern of overcompensating, overachieving, overgiving, over until we recognize that this is not the life that I want to live as a woman, as a wife, sometimes even as a mother. And depending on what type of guilt or shame that has been weaved around this idea of telling your truth about the places that you've been uncompensated or undercompensated, that by the time we get there to tell the truth, we're like, damn, how can I make up for it? Or what are they going to think of me? Or what if? So there's so many factors by the time we reach a certain season in our life, whether we are in the maiden stage, which is the childbearing stage, whether you are approaching the crone stage, where you're at the end of childbearing or the beginning of moving into the later stage, or I like to call it the blooming stage of womanhood, where you're not worried about getting pregnant, or having to take care of children. Most of your children are adult children, or they're and that doesn't even sound right. Adult children, really, we call adults children all their lives, and that's really poor language, poor hygiene. And I learned that, of course, from my mentors, that they really are your adult offspring. So anywho, nevertheless, I just want us to be able to see the seasons that we are in. And one of the things that motivated this story, or this as well, to say, okay, look at God. So I had a look at God moment when there was an incident where my gas needed to be turned off, and then it also required a repairman or the gas man come out. And it was really an inconvenience, because it was cold and all of that, and I was really frustrated and annoyed. And you know how sometimes things happen and you're like, well, how did this happen? Whether it's their neglect. I could even tell you, even for people enrolling into the Queen's Peace Mastermind, I stayed up probably 48 hours working around the clock, only to find out it was a system issue. Was similar to that very thing. There, when the repairman came out, my husband was here. He, escorted him, and he was here for a long time. And I'm like, gosh, like, why is he still here? Well, it wasn't a simple flip of the switch. He goes in to check everything because gas is serious for your house. And he goes in to check everything, and turns out there was a section that of the piping or the tube, whatever that and I don't know the proper term, CP something, basically a leak, a gas leak, where he could not turn it back on readily until that was repaired. So here was a minor thing that became major. Mind you, we have been living in this house for almost 6-7 years with this leak. Now the other thing is, there are times when I have had headaches, I felt worn down and just unexplainable. And all of us have an inner guru, an inner physician that tells us when something is off, and we either ignore it or life happens and there's a distraction. That's happening in the collective consciousness right now, some by design and some just by intent, unconscious overload with particularly since 2020. Humans and humanity have been living in a state of anxiety, and it's becoming a new normal. Trigger anything can cause an explosion, much like a gas leak. And so it was serious. And so in that moment, though, I felt tremendous gratitude, because had the little minor incident not happened, we would have lived with this leak. And who knows what type of effect it would have had. And to this day, really, I still don't know what type of effect it could have had on my lungs. My husband was like, this is why you probably couldn't sleep. And I have been sleeping better lately. But it's just surreal how sometimes when you buy a house, or even when something is new, and it could be a new relationship, a new job, a new whatever, you get into something new and you don't think to look for it because it is new. You have an expectation that what you purchased, what you invested in, is going to be safe for you, or it's going to give you some longevity and that type of thing. So you don't have your guard up, even though when you buy a home, you have home inspection and that type of thing. In fact, there's another energy worker on Facebook who has been telling the story of this beautiful grand house that she had built, and all of this custom furniture that she had designed to go in the house, the artwork that she chose, only to get into the new house and to be sick. Turns out the house in the walls was infested with mold. Now, you say, okay, I hope that as you're hearing these stories that you are thinking not to take anything for granted, because sometimes we're in traffic and we are delayed, rerouted, and you can be pissed off and then the pistivity causes an energy leak. But there's a divine reason that may have prevented something else from happening. There could be times when you were expecting somebody you gave your number to call you back, and whatever childhood rejection conversation or narrative comes up for you because they didn't call you back, and then you feel some kind of way. Energy leak, because we still have uncompensation or undercompensation, and we're looking for life to compensate us in other ways. And so these interruptions sometimes aren't seen as divine interruptions until we get and find out more information. So let's look at a little bit more information. 4 types of energy leaks are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. 4 types of energy leaks. Physical, there are literally kinesiologists. Sometimes there are, you can even do this with your chiropractor, naturopath, not always in Western medicine, but they will examine your body to look for energy leaks of where, even particularly for athletes, where they examine you in the physical. But it can, let me tell you, this can also happen in your digestion. You can have energy leaks in the way that you are digesting food, so you're not getting the nutrients from the food, and therefore you're wondering why I'm eating but I'm not nourished. Do you know that you can be thick and juicy and be malnourished because your body is not absorbing the nutrients? So there are physical energy leaks as well. Sometimes it can be even our lungs, not being able to fully breathe in air and really be able to, that's why our breath work is so important, because we don't have ways to get oxygen and charge up ourselves. So don't even take for granted the physical in terms of energy leaks. There can be muscles that you hurt or bruise that never was treated. I learned this from a chiropractor in Costa Rica when I had a terrible fall on my back. And to this day, I am still sometimes dealing with having to recalibrate myself from that fall. But he told me that I had that fall because of other times of not being adjusted properly. And I learned so much, even to the point of fertility. Your fertility can even be affected. That can be an energy leak for a woman, sometimes unexplained infertility. So mental, there are all types of mental health issues that can happen when we talk about unmet needs and being undercompensated. Okay, so when we're talking about our mental life, I'm going to give you some other examples that maybe we take for granted. I'm going to go a little bit more in detail on the mental and the emotions in just a moment. But I want you to think about some of the things that sometimes no one can see, even though you're performing. And mentally, you may not be okay, but you look like you are on the outside. Or there in the mental, we also have to consider trauma, because trauma is something that never fully just leaves. Trauma is something that is very, very impactful for the rest of your life. It's just that when we do our inner work, it stops controlling us or being the leader. So then there is the emotional, which I'm going to get into. If you have pen and paper, you might want to jot down some of the things that I consider journal prompts for you to consider. But when you think about emotionals, I want you to think about emotional closure. Do you have closure when there's been a betrayal, a breakdown, or disappointment? Did you even address it such that there can be atonement? What about your emotional style being misunderstood by the people who were in authority over your life, but they don't have the emotional capacity, and you do, but you can grow up thinking something is wrong with you, something is off, or whatever, and until you recognize you're spiritually gifted, till you recognize that you're a creative or an artist, so you think different, you process different. Or you learn about your personality type and how to take care of your personality type. And that doesn't mean that the person that was assigned to you in your life had that skill. So what about these unmet needs, even emotionally? And unprocessed emotions. What about the unprocessed emotions that we just move on from? We go from one thing to the next thing, right? What about that? And then then there is the spiritual. And I want to say, it's easy sometimes for such a spiritual people like melanated people to go here first, because we want to go to God. And if you have been conditioned to believe in a God outside of yourself, then you can also have performance anxiety around sin, hell and damnation, fire and brimstone. If you don't do this, then God is going to punish you, and all of these things, that the weight that we put on ourselves. But we don't look at the external world and wonder, how is it that our food we can even have GM, genetically modified food? How is it that we can have genetically modified relationships with ourselves? How is it that we can have all of these events to be politically lied to, and people get away with offshore accounts, hiding money, and now we have censoring on these social platforms where truth is not even embraced? How do we're so hard on ourselves when it comes to our relationships, but we don't ask enough questions to say, well, if that God would do that to me, why isn't this happening here? We over spiritualize, we under spiritualize when we have not been taught to use critical thinking in our spiritual walk, or we've been taught that we can't question God, and or that we have to do so much in order to earn these favors. In fact, we don't have a sovereign, oftentimes in the West, we don't have a sovereign relationship with our God self, because that means that we would have to be responsible for the life that we create, being reality creators, right? So energy leaks there. And so I want to get a little bit more specific with you, right? Here are some of the examples of a mental and emotional and a little bit of spiritual energy leaks, which is, and I guess you could say all of the four types. One is worrying. Ouch or amen. Put it in the comments. I can't see your comments right now. I will in a moment. But overanalyzing, ouch or amen. See, we know ourselves. And if you don't know yourself, there's possibly someone in your life that's giving you feedback that you are dismissing, discounting, even if it's me. Being stuck in old beliefs. This is where the spiritual comes in, or the religious, really. If your religion has you so boxed in with yourself that you can't explore things of nature, and you don't know how to for your kitchen to become your medicine cabinet or your pharmacy, or you don't know how to recalibrate energy using herbs and wellness because you've been taught that is some form of witchcraft or something. It's being stuck in these old beliefs that also are by design to colonize us out of being able to be self-reliant and being able to be sovereign in our relationship with our higher selves, with the holy I am. Number 4, lacking clarity. What about that? You'd say lacking clarity. Yes, when there are times when you may not be clear about what you need to do or what you want to do. So you do what you need to do until you think that you have clarity about what you want to do. There may be times when you're called to do a certain thing, but you tell yourself you don't know how, and then you right back into overanalyzing or judging yourself or that type of thing. Lack of clarity can also show up in our environment as well. So let's just say confusion. It's an energy leak. Clutter and disorganization is a byproduct oftentimes of lack of clarity, lack of motivation, and sometimes even disinterest. Next is resistance. Resistance is one of the ones that I really I show my clients. Resistance tells a major story about the self, even though sometimes it can be projected onto someone else. But resistance to receive, to adjust, to perform, to invest. resistance and reluctance to trust that someone can support you, guide you, resistance and reluctance to receive feedback, resistance and reluctance around your money because you don't want to look at your money. I'd rather not deal with it. I want somebody else to deal with it, because you're not dealing with the old beliefs. You're not dealing with the lack of clarity. So I won't face it. And one of the ways it can show up is lateness, shutting down, isolation, removing yourself from interactions, projection, or attack on other people. Number 7 is lack of boundaries. Oftentimes these contribute to big energy leaks, not saying what you mean, not asking for what you desire or need, and rescuing. And so when you're giving your energy away to someone, then oftentimes you're not getting it back. Eventually it can lead to resentment or just breakdown and fatigue and overwhelm and all of the other things, because these are just a few. So then, which is a natural segue, is number 8, fatigue. Fatigue. Unexplained, really it should say inability to get started, or overgiving, or just not being motivated. You can be tired sometimes for no reason, but you also can be tired from giving to everyone else or doing too much. How many of you have heard some of your children sometimes be like, "Mom, you're doing too much." Your husband sometimes can be like, "Babe, you're doing too much." Fatigue. And so you pass out, you don't really go to sleep. You don't rest. I know I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I pass out instead of being able to prepare for bed, prepare for rest. You all know there's a whole piece on replenishment where our reading material is rest and is resistance in the app. Please download the app. And then there are health challenges that I mentioned before when we talked about the types of physical. And please add more or any questions in the comments. I'll read them when I can see the comments in just a moment. And then, of course, lack of self-care. Lack of self-care. So you say, okay, LaTanya, you've given us these examples of energy leaks. And now you say, okay, I get it. I see it. I see myself in this. I see what I need to do. This is very important for when we're talking about feminine abundance and making room for you to position yourself to prosper, reposition yourself to prosper, to respond to what's happening in the collective, in the banking institution, what's happening with our food, what's happening with our children. And the influences that are even coming against womanhood and not allowing women to claim themselves as women, redefining what being female is, and all of the attacks that are happening. Like, there are so many levels that are happening right now. So even if you look at this just for your business, right? Did I talk about number 5, clutter and disorganization? Let me go back, because I just very important. I don't want to leave anything out when it comes to clutter and disorganization. Some spirit just said, go back. Unopened bills, that's avoidance. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to go back to that. I don't want to look at it. I don't know, that was for somebody. Just unfinished projects, incompletions. I could tell you all some story about the things that I have in the vault of learning materials that have not been published and uploaded and such. And when I showed my husband over, I'd say, a $15,000 investment of different things that you would probably love to have. He really got into my vortex to show me even the leak for me. So I'm sharing myself. You got to look at your examples, because sometimes the examples are mirrors, right? And so I want you to understand that this is an invitation to be able to see, because we are so busy, we are so involved, we are sometimes making too many excuses, and the abundance is right there waiting for us to just show up to receive it. Because the feminine and living the soft life requires you to be able to just sometimes say yes. And so that does require for us to look at a few things. So I want to give you those journal prompts that I mentioned before. When we think about the mental energy, ask yourself, what are the unfinished things in your life? What are the unfinished things in your life? What decisions have you been postponing? Where is your mental energy leaking? What's pending? What's unclear? Which thoughts preoccupy your mind daily? And are those thoughts serving you? When it comes to your emotions, where is your emotional energy leaking? What unmet needs have not been addressed or processed? And you don't do this all alone, because if you had the tools, you would have done it by now. This is why we have the image here of community, of women being surrounded by and loved and adored and smiling, because there's and taking the handcuffs off. Because every time we take these handcuffs off through our meditation, through answering these journal prompts, getting still, replenishing ourselves, resting as a form of resistance, studying and showing ourselves approved by studying, taking time as that being a part of your lifestyle, not something that you have to make time for. Last question for emotions. What unresolved emotions do you carry with you and that shows up in repetition? They are there not to judge and condemn you, but to really invite you to look, invite you to play a different game, invite you to raise yourself above and not get down and beneath. Sometimes it does require shadow work. Sometimes it does require a difficult conversation. Sometimes it does require asking for help from a new source, new energy, or the same energy that you've dismissed. We can be very dismissive. Sometimes it is talk therapy. You just need to get it out your system. You need to communicate in a healthy way. First with yourself. That's what these journal prompts are. In your prayers, do you have a prayer life? Do you have a meditation space? Is your home even conducive for you to be able to go to a space and feel good? Does your bedding reflect the luxuriating that you deserve, right? Is your bathroom now your personal spa? Does your kitchen have herbs, or does it just have salty products in it over season your food? Do you know how to use certain herbs in your food? Do you know how to use herbs to make teas and tinctures, to heal your family, to rub salve on the congestive chest of a child, or you got to go run to ER? Do you know how to clean the corners of your house and to call forth the energy that you need? Do you know how to get yourself into a state of mind and state of trance? Not when there's an issue, because too many of us spiritually have a relationship with God that is only SOS, a call for help. And sometimes we want to do coaching like that. I only am coming when I'm in trouble, but not to get in front of it, to play a new game, a different game. So the invitation is extending to activate your Shero's journey. It has hero on here. I didn't have time enough to tack a S onto it, because the Shero's journey is something that I'm always calling you to. And many of you have answered the call one time, but rebirth is not a one-time event. The call to adventure, supernatural call, is when you start the journey, but you gotta cross the threshold, not one time, but more than one time. And depending on the season of your life, there's different thresholds that you have to cross. Sometimes it's your love that is the supernatural call, your matters of the heart, relationships. Sometimes it's your leaving and transitioning out of religion or religious mindset, religious bondage that makes you cross the threshold. Sometimes it's your money. You want to live more abundantly. You want to live the good life. You want to live the soft life. And so you got to cross a threshold and meet your mentor. Many of you consider me your mentor for the free. But what about the investment of time, of your money? Because you are the return on your investment. And then you get into the space of revelation in your journey. And then comes transformation and atonement with yourself, sometimes with others, but also with your money, with the desires of your heart, with your vision. And then you can return and be of service at home to yourself, just like Dorothy, who had to go on the yellow brick road, honey. It may have been a dream. It may have been time travel. It may have been supernatural experiences that were happening, but she ended up back home, honey, a different person. And guess what? The journey starts all over again. So you're invited to come into the inner circle to play the Queen's Piece and how to play it. And this month, we're dealing with how handling our business and our emotions, handling our business and our emotions, how to leverage them in service to the vision that we have to live the feminine abundance formula. So who is she? I like this quote. She is your power, your feminine source, big mama, goddess, the great mystery, the web weaver, the life force. The first time in the 20th century, you might not have recognized her, honey, but you recognize her now. She is you. Okay, I added that part. Or pretend not to hear her. She will continuously call you to your Shero's journey. I added that part because her oil is meeting up with my oil. As she fills your body with ripples of terror and delight, do it afraid. Sign up. Come see. But when she calls you, you will know that you've been called. Then it is up to you to decide if you will answer. And then we enter into these zones of wisdom, vision, emotion, and we get to play a new game. So I pray that this has been of some service to you. And that you listen. Let me check the comments. Oh, okay. All right. I see someone saying, I'm saying yes. Put me in the game, coach. Okay. I'm giving you a fist bump. Put me in the game, coach. I'm saying yes. Okay. Somebody say, I don't know how to do all of that. I'm here, open, ready, locked and loaded, ready to cross the threshold. Come on, honey. Start your Shero's journey, or return to your Shero's journey, or nurture your Shero's journey. Yes. All right. Somebody said damn to something I was presenting. Somebody said ouch. My God. I love y'all. I love y'all so much. Somebody said, You are hitting home. I have been communicating differently, apologizing for things they haven't done, been coming for my girls in the group. Come on, play the Queen's piece, baby, for the girls. Listen, there's a new season for many of us. We gotta play the Queen's piece. Y'all want this shirt? We gotta play the Queen's piece. Yes, and it's chess, not checkers. Thank you. Someone also gave me feedback on carbon monoxide leak. Yes, honey, by the grace of God, thank you, because somebody was looking out for me. Thank God. Okay, we no longer have that issue. And the lesson in that was the elevation of that was acted upon like this, because there's so many side effects of having an energy leak in your house. And this is true for gas leaks, water leaks. These are also, when you have gas leaks or water leaks or anything happening in your foundation or anything in your house like that, they also bring a spiritual message, just like when we see animals. If you wake up and see a deer in the morning, or an owl certainly visits, your red bird comes, we pay attention. Do you all pay attention to these things? Your house is also giving you feedback about something going on with you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and oftentimes your finances. Have you all ever heard of people saying that a house is it's been a money pit? There are some people who don't invest in property to live in a property. They'll have a property that they rent out, but they do not pay a mortgage to live in that property because they don't want that responsibility. In fact, Susie Orman was one of the first ones that I heard. She owned property, but she lived in a condo because for her, it felt better to make sure that her needs were met. She had investments, or she chose the stock market. So these are the things that we're talking about in the Queen's Piece that we can't always talk about in the open platform. I am committed this year that there are private conversations, tribe, not that we can't even have in the tribe. We have to have them for the people who are invested in masterminding what it is that we need to do for our next move. How about, remember last year, I was talking to you about growing your food, sewing your clothes, bartering, and look at what's happening with eggs. Hint, hint. Did not talk to you all about that. Remember, we talked about this in Rebirth Sunday. Your girl is working with a little something. If you don't believe, help your unbelief. So come into the Queen's Piece. The link is in the comments below to sign up. It is a nominal fee, love offering, actually, for what you're getting. You get it is not a big pull on your time. We come together once a month after you've had time to go through the presentation and work it and set it up according to your goals each month. Then we process through whatever you need help with. And that comes from me mainly, but also the group may have resources. We also have a reading piece for the month, a book of the month, a reference of the month. And I also have something else that's coming, but I will be sharing that with you later because I want you all to know this year how to work with your feminine archetypes. And so we're going to do a special rare session on feminine archetypes. When you are enrolled in the mastermind, you will get to attend those at a significant member incentive, different from what's offered to the public. So it's going to be worth your while over time, and each module is building on the other. So I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. See you on the other side. Let me know if you have any questions. Oh, let's close out with a little Tony. Let's close this out with a little Tony, honey. Our theme song, honey. Work that. Thank you. Share this with a friend. See you all on the other side.